Okay, so last but not least is the Ether. Um, I left this to last for a lot of reasons. Probably the most obvious is that it's Matt's latest book, um, and I wanted to review them in order of, as far as I understood it, in order of the chronology in which he came up with his ideas. So I wasn't entirely sure whether Cordelia Swift or Chunks was the first published comic, but I thought Cordelia Swift was. So I went with Cordelia Swift first. It's been um, it's been pretty interesting to see Matt's evolution as a writer along these four titles. You can really see here in the Ether how he has a better understanding for the information a reader needs to get, and how quickly and so forth, to be able to process the story at this speed in which the panels are set, compared to something like Cordelia Swift. And this is not Cordelia Swift. I really enjoyed Cordelia Swift, and that's genuine. But this is the comic of Matt's that feels like it could compete with some of the pretty good stuff that's coming out at the big two, and some of the pretty good stuff that's coming out at Dark Horse and Image and stuff. It's essentially Rorschach from Watchmen by way of Batman, in that the character is this kind of Rorschach vigilante, but he's not really working with he's not really working against law enforcement. The opening scene is the cops in are investigating a murder, and the Ether does this iconic superhero thing where he comes in through the window and says, I'm the fight bad guys. The identity of the character, I gotta take my hat off to Matt. That's an exceptional way to go, and it makes sense too. It's sort of like one of those conceits that we probably should have seen in a superhero comic by now, but we kind of really haven't. I don't really want to sort of give anything away. I suspect a lot of people have actually read this by now, so they would probably be able to understand what I'm talking about. But there is a surprise in who the secret identity of the Ether and the kind of social politics involved in that, which is it makes sense, So actually, just back to the writing, I wanted to sort of highlight the progression that Matt has come here. The writing is very sparse and deliberate, and it's very effective. It's a great read, but Matt isn't the star of the show here, and I hope he's not disappointed to hear that. But the art by Garveyverse it's amazing. This is the type of stuff that you come across in a comic and you just go, holy crap. I mean, so the character the Ether wears a map of London on his face, and Garveyverse draws that in every time the character appears. It's sort of like it's got this 80 Grainov element to it, which is obviously it's painted panels, but there's a kineticism there which is fantastic. The characters always feel like they're moving the expressions are not lifeless or staged. They are human. And on top of that, there are these little tiny little bits of lettering which I haven't seen in the other issues by Matt that really sort of make it feel like a pretty special comic. Look, I can't really gush over this enough. This is when I was reading this, what I was thinking actually was reminds me of the type of stuff that you would find in Marvel's Max imprint back in the day. And the Max imprint had a bit of a reputation for producing really, really good stuff, like Garveyverse Punisher Max series, and then just kind of forgettable stuff. It was a very risky experimental imprint that took that sort of, like, it did stuff like Deadpool Max, which I don't know, I didn't really think it was very good, and Wolverine Max, which kind of felt like it wasn't really doing anything special with the characters. But the best stuff from that imprint was just really well crafted stories that were going to feature violence and sort of be mired in a bit more of an adult context without making it gratuitous. The best comics from the Max weren't just about fucking gutting someone and tit shots and all that sort of stuff. Not that we really ever got anything like that, but it wasn't really just about being adult for the sake of adult, and that is what The Other is like. The Other is clearly an adult comic. It lives in an adult comic world, and it's a beautiful comic to read. It's one of those hands down fantastic painted comics that you really want to have. If you haven't bought it already, buy it, because this potentially has, there is a future out there for this comic, which is could be a bright future. You have a writer who is more motivated than most writers, who understands what an audience wants and how to tell a good and interesting story, and paired with an artist who just has a sensational sense of aesthetics and and movement and flow. It really is a special comic, especially when you realise that this has mostly been pushed by Matt Solo. He hasn't had a dark horse or an Image give him a shot. He's done this on his own. And when you think about how hard that must be, and then to produce something of this quality which can compete with some of the best stuff that's out there on the shelves, you have to be impressed. You have to think, holy crap, if this is what he's putting out now, what is he going to put out in 10 years' time? Just buy it, just buy it and read it. I suspect it probably took quite a long time to produce, because it's a very beautiful looking comic, sort of. So I hope we don't get a massive gap of time like you see with something like Nate Simpson's Non-Player. I hope we can get to the next installment of this in a reasonable time frame, because I'm interested in seeing where the other goes. You know, the superhero character is mostly playing on well-established tropes, and that's great. You know, everyone loves something that they're familiar with, but familiar but different. You know, same but different. And then there is a whole depth to the character's secret identity that obviously becomes available once you learn about that. And there's at the center of it there is also this mystery, which is kind of like it's a fairly it's not a sort of supernatural criminal mystery or anything like that, or anything that's sort of mired in superheroics or anything like that. It's a very sort of at this stage it seems to be kind of a bit of a hard crime mystery, and Matt did that sort of detective stuff pretty well in Run and Hide. So I would like to see how this all unfolds, and I'm looking forward to it. And you know, it really is a sensational piece of work. And I recommend anyone to buy it. You know, just buy it, even if you don't read comics. You know, even if you don't have eyes or hands, even if you're just a brain in a tube, buy it. Okay. Well, that is all of the books for me to review. It was a real pleasure being able to review these and buy them. You can find Matt on Millerworld, which he occasionally stops by and graces with his presence, or his website, which I'm sure you will see backwards, but if you hold that up to a mirror, you might be able to decipher it. Hopefully, you're able to do that. If you can't, it's mattgarvey.co.uk. And as I said in my first video for today, I wish Matt, you know, the brightest possible future, the best success. He is exactly the type of person we should be supporting as a community. He produces excellent work. He promotes fantastic artists. He tells good stories, and he does it on his own. You know, I think Matt's sort of said a couple of times that he's not really making money off this. He's doing it out of love, and you have to respect that. That aside, you know, that whole thing aside, which we should be supporting anyway as a community, the stories are good. You know, the stories are worth reading. They're interesting. It's better than a lot of the stuff that I've seen come out of both the big two in the last couple of years, although there's been some excellent comics from them as well. Yeah, so, you know, bye. Okay. Bye.